Hey everyone, it's 10 Types, joined by Uncommon Fossil as always, and we are the Reasonably Effective Podcast. What episode is this? Eight, I think.
8, I believe we're up to, yes.
Yeah, and so we're going preparing for like rotations coming up, and
Hmm.
yeah, it's kind of messy with like live and stuff. Um, but yeah, you've been migrated for a little while. So how's how's it
Yeah.
been with like live and stuff?
Yeah, I mean, live's been fine. Yeah, it's simpler now that I migrated. I think I've said that, right? I just have one account. In terms of rewards, one thing, and it's a little buggy, but not too much. Mostly, it's kind of visual glitches, like the abilities don't highlight properly. I know you like to mess around with the glitch where like you can take the prize cards out of the sleeve, so to speak, but it actually doesn't impact the gameplay, right? For the most part, I think one time I had a Pokemon that rather than picking which Pokemon was my starter, it just flung one out there. But stuff like that doesn't happen too often, fortunately.
Yeah, I haven't had it. I was gonna say haven't had it crash in the past week. I'm not sure if that's true, but it's working well enough, I guess, which is a good sign. I don't know if they're getting better. It seems like it's getting a little better, which is looking good. I think I don't know. I because you said it's much easier my grid not having two accounts.
Yeah.
Um, and so yeah, I'm considering. I really don't want to migrate because it like isn't in a great spot. And it
Hmm.
doesn't fill me with confidence. But also, if I want to play Scarlet and Violet, the new cards and post rotation, like there's no reason to stick around a PTCGO. But then
Yeah.
also I can't play themed. Uh, I can't play Legacy. I wouldn't want to play Legacy anyway. But I can't play like Expanded. Can't play GLC. I don't really play too much GLC anyway. But yeah, it's like it's annoying. I don't know. I'm not sure. I think. Do you think I should migrate, or do you think that's just?
I think since you're waited this long, I think I would recommend you wait until Scarlet and Violet drops. There's certainly a decent chance that Live's going to have major issues. Now, this last update actually fixed things and didn't really add too many issues. The one thing I'm aware of is when a metal Pokemon becomes active, it makes a giant sound, even though I have like all the volume muted in game. But um, I guess that's not the worst thing that could be happening. But certainly with Scarlet and Violet, there's a lot of new stuff happening. Um, uh, every expansion has caused major problems in live, and I think there's going to be a lot more players moving to live, and the servers may get overwhelmed too. So there's it may be a few days or even weeks that live is semi unplayable. So I might wait if I was you.
Yeah, I'm probably gonna do that. I mean, I really want to obviously record content for live, mess
Yeah.
with Scarlet and Violet, mess around with the new stuff. I can always like talk about a list, but it's really like important to show it off. And I have like obviously showed live stuff on my channel.
Yeah.
If you're watching this, I'm interested in hearing or listening, I suppose, if you're doing this, viewing it through YouTube or if you're viewing it through some other platform, which it may be out on. Um, that should hopefully be happening soon. I'm not. Is that happening soon?
Yeah, I've been doing some work to figure out what we need to do to make this podcast actually a podcast, and I've converted these videos MP4 files to MP3s, which is one step, and I've looked through hosting platforms and got a sense of that. I think I know what platform to use and stuff. So maybe within the next week or so, we'll get the podcast out as a podcast itself, so which would be nice.
Yeah, that'd be good. But yeah, you said live's all right. You played with Mimikyu EX, right? Which is in
I did,
live.
right.
Does that like works fine, right?
Yep, yeah, there's no issues with it. And there's nothing tricky about the Mimikyu, right? It doesn't have any special abilities or the what the terrestrial whatever that's called, right? Which I don't know.
Yeah.
That's a new thing, right? Is it going to handle this other thing, and then is Path going to shut it off? Which it shouldn't, but who knows about that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Um,
I feel like if they have like like they've had bugs every time they add like a new set, they have
yeah,
like bugs with some of the cards. That's kind of understandable. It's good if for them to get it right. If they have a few things that they get like small things that are wrong, that's not the end of the world. They really need to get on it quickly. I'm more
Yeah.
concerned either about the whole mechanic like not working, which it should work. It's pretty much the same as V's, but
Hmm.
there are chances it has glitches. Certainly very high chances. I think it has like serious glitches with the EX mechanic as a whole, and also, um, like if like the servers crash, that's really bad. So I'm nervous about that.
Yeah.
I'm getting a little more confidence. The more I played it, it like kind of works. I'm feeling a bit better.
Yeah. Now I'll just give you the warning. Now, honestly, in terms of you're going to have to migrate, and even if live isn't great, there might not be many people in PTCGO in a couple once Scarlet and Violet drops too. So it may be a bit of a ghost town. But back in like December, I was at the point where I felt good about live because it had been maybe several weeks or a month without a big issue. They did an update, I think, mid-December, and then it like caused major issues that took them over 2 weeks to resolve, where the game was almost unplayable. Like if anybody played Mew, the game locked up, and so it was pretty. It was pretty brutal. So I'm concerned that something to that level could happen again. Hopefully not, but don't
Yeah,
know.
I hope not. Like, and that's without messing up old cards, which I mean, I don't really know what's going on behind the scene, but
Yeah.
I hope it works out. I think that's it for live, right? I don't. Oh no, you've been doing some other stuff in live too,
I
right?
was doing, yeah, just briefly. I've been looking at the live economy because that's one of the things I try to look at on my channel as a budget player with what they do. And you have the three currencies, one of which is just for cosmetics, but then you have the crystals and the credits. The credits are really important because you actually can craft any card you want, and that's what you're going to have to use to access the new decks. So you want to be able to turn crystals into credits because you get a lot of crystals daily challenges and on the battle pass. And there's a couple ways to do it. People generally say you buy celebrations packs, which isn't bad, but for my uh, research doing it myself, so I think the Shadow Rider League Battle deck is actually the best bargain in terms of the number of credits you get per crystal spent. So that's just my advice there. So look at the Shadow Rider League Battle decks, just good for getting a lot of credits, and then that'll if you want to build the new EX decks when they're out, you've got to have credits to craft the cards. That's what we're going to be forced to do. Besides whatever they give us, obviously in the battle pass, and we'll find out that shortly.
Yeah, I'm hoping they give us good stuff.
Hmm.
Like just probably Guard or the legendaries or something. I think I feel like they'll probably give us something all right. I
Yeah.
feel like they'll give us something good. They pretty much, I think they've done a pretty good job with that in the past. That's one
Hmm.
of the few things they have done a good job with. It's like that
Yeah.
accessibility.
Right. Yeah. I hope they give Gardevoir. My guess is Gardevoir will be the free one because it seems like back with Lugia, that was the deck. They made it free, and there'll be some other, a decent second deck in the premium battle pass. The other thing, oh, just to mention, because rotation's coming up, so all of the free starter decks are not going to be playable as they're currently built. So what are they going to do for that for new players? Because I hope they give new players actually playable decks, and then for existing players like us, are they going to give us if they drop new decks? Are they going to give us new decks? Another thing to find out how they approach things.
Yeah, I think I heard news. I don't know if this is official or not, but that there were some like thoughts of possible new decks for starters for like the starter decks, which is
Hmm.
obviously that's very important. Right now you get like in PTCGO, which I'm in, you get Mental Might, which is pretty awful.
Right.
It's obviously not playable in standard like at all, and even in themed format, it's like not good.
No, it's not.
So I hope they give us like I hope they make the decks a bit stronger as well. They're like a bit iffy, but we'll see. As long as they do something reasonable, I think I'm fine with that. But
Hmm.
if they just leave it to rot and just don't give it players anything new and relevant, then that's problematic.
Right, because the starter decks in PTCGO they didn't get updated for what, like 8 years or something, or maybe more. I'm not sure. They really just gave up on that, which really just showed a lack of concern for new players. So, but
Hmm.
we'll see. All right, so I think that's enough alive, right? We want to move on to happier thoughts.
Yeah, I definitely do.
All right, so we've got our reasonably effective card of the day, which is Goodra Vstar. Which I had been looking. But partly we brought it up because I had done a deck on that recently, the Goodra Lost Zone bill. So just the Goodra card, it's Goodra V Star. Right? It is 270 HP, dragon type, so no weakness, and it's a very tanky Pokemon. Rolling Iron attack, 200 damage, which is pretty good for 3 energy, water, metal, colorless. But then during your next opponent's next turn, this Pokemon takes 80 less damage from attacks. So 270, and you add an extra 80 on top of it. You're not getting one shot really by anything. Yveltal that just knocks it out, obviously, can take it out, but nothing can really do the damage to knock it out. And then you have Moisture Star ability, it's Vstar power, that lets you heal all the damage from this Pokemon, which of course you can only do once per game as a Vstar power. So that makes it pretty tanky. With a Goodra, if it's in the active, and as long as it doesn't get gusted out, which is always a risk, your opponent really has to 3-hit one of them. They hit into it, you can Moisture Star, attack again a second time, they hit into it, and then you attack a third time before you get knocked out, and that's pretty good, and it's not terrible to set up. I would say also.
Yeah, I think it's so there are a few ways of setting up, right? You said Lost
Hmm.
Zones, so you can use Mirage Gate.
Yep.
Can use Arceus V-Star, that's sometimes played. And you can also use Melanie. Melanie's played in most Goodra builds, I think. But you probably want to, it's probably best with Lost Zone, although Arceus is very solid as well.
Hmm.
I mean, there are a few other ways. You could go Street Goodra. Um,
Yeah, that's pretty
but
tricky though.
Yeah, I think I built a deck like that anyway. It's not as good as Lost Zone. You have less versatility and less consistency, so that doesn't really make a lot of sense. But generally like Goodra with Lost Zone's very good because
Hmm.
obviously you have water energy and metal energy, but it's not that hard. It synergizes very well with Mirage Gate. And then you can also attack with Radiant Greninja. It has very nice synergy with that because
Yep.
water energy is really nice in that deck. So I'm definitely a big fan of it. You like Duraludon, right?
Yeah, I enjoy playing Duraludon.
And I feel like obviously Duraludon's tanky, but Goodra feels more tanky. Obviously Duraludon's immune to special energies, which is kind of nice. I mean, very nice, but
Right, and
uh,
Duraludon does more damage. That 20 extra damage does, it can make a difference. But especially, your ability, Goodra probably doesn't knock out the opposing V Pokemon. You have to get a choice belt on it to make that happen.
yeah, yeah. But I still I like Goodra a lot, and it gives up
Hmm.
one less prize as well, which is a pretty big
Yes.
deal.
Yeah.
So I feel like Goodra is just a very strong Pokemon. It's one of my favorites.
Hmm.
Um, because like I don't know, it's just versatile and it's I don't know, I like it a lot. It also has the same energy typing as one of my favorite dragon Pokemon, EDP.
Yes. So, although when you say that, I get I get traumatized when I hear ADP said. But you like to play ADP. You like being the schoolyard bully. I was ended up being the little kid getting picked on with my decks with ADP, but against ADP. But that's be what it is.
Yeah, with your welder decks.
Exactly. The welder deck's hoping, if it sets up great. If not,
One like
you
doing
cry.
300, 400 damage turn one.
All right, maybe that was a bully deck too. I can't argue that. The other thing, well, for two comments. One, you mentioned Melanie. When I've been playing the Lost Zone build, it doesn't include Melanie because you really want a colorless experiment, and then some Roxanne and Boss to kind of control things. I haven't played Melanie in that, but you could.
Okay.
Arceus build, you obviously want it because you need to. That's what you need to set up your Arceus too, to get that attack off. The other card with Lost Zone, which I know you have interest in, it doesn't get used a lot, but Fantina, the supporter. Now you have to have 10 cards in the Lost Zone, so you won't get there till late in the game. But honestly, you often will get to that point in a game, and then
Yeah,
what it.
probably like you could get there turn three. That's not possible. Certainly by
Mhm.
turn four, it's not. I'd say you
Right.
probably get there in most games unless you like completely whiff.
Right. In which case, you'll have lost by turn 3 or 4 if you're not setting up usually. And what that does, because it just doesn't see a lot of play, but it's got a lot of potential. Your opponent, your Pokemon take 120 less damage from your opponent's V Pokemon. Now, obviously, that's particularly good now, while it's only Vs for the multi-prize Pokemon. Once the EXs come out, it doesn't apply to that. It's only V's. It's not rule box in general. But taking 120, and then that doesn't get affected by gusting, because one of the things against Goodra, your opponent you want to rope the opponent's Goodra to get him out, and then boss that one back up so you can do the full damage often to knock it out. But Fantina doesn't matter if your active Pokemon switches or not. So it's a nice option as a possible add in the Lost Zone deck.
Yeah, I feel like so you always talk about that like one of the biggest vulnerabilities of the deck is that your opponent roping you, then bossing you.
Yeah.
I've never seen that happen, I don't think, and I don't think I've ever done it either. I don't think like it's pretty difficult to do. Um,
I mean,
yeah,
I know I've done it against it, but it depends on the deck. Like I'm looking at my Goodra Lost Zone deck. It plays 3 rope in it. Again, if you're playing a Lost Zone deck, that's more likely you can do it because you got a lot of switch. You play one of that is a lot of rope in it. So I have 3 ropes and 3 bosses. So it's not crazy that I can pull it off once in a game.
I guess I feel like it's pretty sketchy. Also, like Lost Zone, you're often not one-shotting them anyways, so it
Yeah,
doesn't really. I mean, it matters some to do a bit more damage, but it doesn't really matter for like you're not going to one-shot them anyway. I
that's
feel like
true.
you're much more likely to just get one-shotted by like Evoltal or something. Obviously, you can play Big Parasol until that rotates, but
Right.
um, I feel like there are things that can go wrong. I think it's also kind of awkward to set up. It's not a super free energy cost because you need these various types of energies.
Right.
So I don't know. I think the deck's pretty strong though, and I like it a lot too.
Right. It's strong. The fact that dragons have a weakness is certainly a plus. But then, as with all the dragons, it's multiple types of energy, so it does make it more awkward. But again, this actually leans into the Lost Zone build because Mirage Gate has to be 2 different energy types. So a Pokemon that has this, 2 types of energy actually works well with Mirage Gate. So it's better than if it's multiple of the same type actually.
Yeah, that's true. And it's like clear why they came out in the same set as like the Lost Zone, even though it's like very similar to Giratina Vstar
Mm-hmm.
in the fact that it's like a dragon type pairs with a Lost Zone, except it's like the opposite side, I guess. Gudra's tanky, Giratina
Right.
does high damage. I feel like
Yeah.
also with Goodra, its ability isn't that good. Like in Arceus, you're definitely gonna use your V-Star power to set up,
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to Goodra's V-Star power to heal. It buys you an extra turn, which is nice. Sometimes it can even buy you 2, but I feel like you'd rather use another V-Star power to get more value.
Uh, yeah, it's obviously designed to pair with its tankiness, with the 80 less damage. But Arceus's V-Star power is so much better. Palkia with accelerating energy, much better. Was
Lugia,
Lugia
Lugia's fine.
obviously. Well, Lugia obviously because of Archeops, right? Without
Yeah,
Archeops, I'm not sure what you do with it, but
yeah.
obviously we
I
don't.
mean, Lugia's V-Star power is its whole deck, though. So
Right, and there's a lot of better ones out there. You're right. Oh, and I was the metal one, Dialga V Star, obviously attacking twice, right? Way better again.
yeah,
So,
but I'm thinking in like a Goodra deck, you might like to play. Obviously, Arceus is good in its
hmm
V-Star power, and then also like the Forest Seal Stone. I feel like could be worth it in this style of deck where you are able to set up better if you played that.
it might. I mean, the V Star power does almost all the time. You get one more turn with your V Star, and you know. I mean, obviously, if you use Force Steel Stone and get to attack a turn sooner, it's kind of the same thing, right? Setting up a turn sooner versus surviving extra turn, it's a close trade off. So, it could go in the deck for sure. That's not a crazy notation idea. I mean, obviously, if you're making it the Arceus build, then obviously you just use Arceus's ability.
Yeah,
And there's a third build which we haven't mentioned, which you've done used more than I have, and that's in the
yeah.
Reggie Drago V Star
Yeah.
deck.
Oh, I think there's a few other things I want to say about Gudra, like
Okay.
itself. Because obviously it takes 80 less, but then there are more ways to add on additional tanking.
Mm-hmm.
The list I have here is actually kind of weird. Maybe, but it does play Hyper Potion, so you can heal off that way. But then
Okay.
also
Yep.
Crystal Cave, Radiant
Mm-hmm.
Gardevoir. You could play like Acuity, you could play V-Guard Energy, probably not V-Guard Energy, but
Yep.
I feel like you could play Big Trump, Big Parasol, all these things. So it gets like even more tanky and
Mm-hmm.
Fantina, as you said before. So I think
Right.
Gudra is very difficult to KO.
Right. So, yeah. So you could lean into the tankiness, like you said, like with those ideas. Um, that's the I think the 200 damage is a good number, right? It's strong enough to make it good, but it's not so strong if it was at 220, it probably would be too good at that. It could potentially one shot the other Vs, and then it could just run over things too quickly. So I think they've done a pretty good job designing it.
Yeah, I think so. But then so with the Veggie Draco build, which I have played, um, with Veggie Draco Vstar copies Dragon Pokemon you just got pile.
Hmm.
Of course, that would probably be Hisuian Goodra Vstar. It could be Giratina Vstar. It could be Duraludon VMAX. Um, Probably just those. It could be
Well, yeah, Appleton,
Appleton.
right?
Yeah. I guess that's pretty. I don't think I played that in my list, but yeah. And then you have these like versatile attacking toolbox style deck, and then
Right.
you probably power it up with Arceus. It's a bit of a weird deck to power up, but I feel like Goodra's probably the best attacker in that deck.
Yeah, I mean, how to power up the Regidrago is the tricky thing. Tried it a little bit, but not a lot. I mean, like the build that I have right here doesn't play Arceus, but it plays Leafeon. So especially if you go first, then you're setting up your one Regidrago with Leafeon's greening cells
And does it play
ability.
Dragonite in that list?
Um, no, the list I have does not.
Okay,
Um,
so
but but
I
then it
feel
but
like
then it plays Gardenia's Vigor, which is another way too, right?
ah
A very you want to go the opposite of consistent. That's it. But an intriguing card. I feel like.
yeah, I think it's. I mean, it's an interesting deck. I enjoy the Arceus build. It's pretty consistent. You can literally just like Arceus all game, and it's not the end of the world.
Yeah.
Um, and then Gudra's good in that deck. Obviously, it's probably the best attacker, as I said, because it gives you more survivability. But all the attacks are pretty all right. Um, I'm not sure if it doesn't have as much versatility as you'd like. Really, all of them hit around 200 something damage, so
Yeah.
it's not actually that versatile. But yeah, it's probably weaker as well. You didn't play much Regidraka, right?
No, I did not. I mean, the weird thing with the Regidrago box, usually box decks are trying to take advantage of weakness, right? To avoid weaknesses and to hit for different weaknesses. But here, they're all dragon, so they have no weakness. They hit nothing for weakness. So a big part of a box deck it doesn't take advantage of.
I feel like when I think of a box deck, I think of like Mewtwo Mew or like Ditto. You use
Hmm.
one Poke, or even like the Baby Mew from uh, what's the Baby Mew from?
Uh, wait, the celebrations view or the
No, the Mew that copies attacks.
um,
It Fates Collided.
it might be.
I don't
I
know,
don't
but
remember now, but yeah, I know
but
for
that Mew,
yep.
Marshadow GX, there are a lot,
Hmm.
and those don't take it. Well, okay, Marshadow Mew might take advantage of attack of weakness, but generally, like Mewtwo Mew, it's not meant. It's not there for weakness. It's there to like have a variety of attacks, and you can attack with the same Pokemon and do multiple things.
Right, but with
So
the Marshadow GX and the Mew that copies attacks, that would mix up your type you'd attack with because usually with those, the decks I played it in, you would attack with the Pokemon they're copying also at times.
well, you only played in Mad Party, right?
Yeah, you got me there. You got me.
Yeah, but I don't know. I think it's an all right deck, but it's kind of weird. But I think it's time to transition to our next topic.
Okay.
Speaking of Mad Party, would you like to introduce it?
Yeah, so talking, our last topic here is decks that are rotating because we're from the time of recording are about 2.5 weeks for Scarlet and Violet dropping on live, and I believe rotation happens that same day. So,
You mean dropping the ball on live?
well, uh, hopefully dropping on live in a good way that we can enjoy playing it. Hopefully not bringing the game down to a crash, but time will tell there. But live, Scarlet and Violet's never dropping on PTCG. We know that part. So,
You
um,
never know. They say it's not, but I don't think we know much at this point.
well, I mean, they've said that they can't roll things backwards and backwards migrate, but I said they may have the ability to do that. In which case, that's always a possibility, right?
Yeah,
But
or they will just not. They won't backwards migrate. You just lose your stuff.
well, and honestly, they're not. They've said they're not gonna. PTGO is gonna exist until live is out of beta. It may be that live just never goes out of beta, also, right?
Yeah.
I wouldn't, who knows what's going to happen. But anyway, but so decks that are rotating, right? This kind of time to remember. All right, so think about our favorite decks that are rotating. You led things off with the Mad Party comment, and that for me is one of the decks that I'm going to miss, and I've certainly enjoyed playing. It was probably when I got Mad Party, that was the best standard deck that I had played up to that point as a relatively new player. And obviously, Mad Party was very accessible as a budget player. You just had to open enough packs. You'd get almost all the cards you needed just from opening packs without making any trades. And it was a very solid deck. It had its run as probably a top 10 deck for a while. So, um,
Not that long.
well, considering it was kind of a budget meme deck, it was a good budget meme deck, right? I think is fair to say.
Yeah, I guess so. Some people thought it was gonna be like really good. It wasn't particularly good. It was always very vulnerable to a lot of things. So,
Well, it
um,
could be shut
yeah,
down, and that was true. I mean, it came out when obviously VMAXs were still new, so this ability, but the single prize deck that can certainly knock out a true prize V, and could come close to one shotting the three prize VMAX. It might even be able to if you got lucky, but you could certainly two shot it, and that was obviously your head to try the prize trade with that. So I think I know I love Mad Party. I think a lot of people just have a soft spot for that, right? If people like a single prize deck. They like the gimmicky thing. And the other thing for me is it was a good expanded deck. It was my first good expanded deck because it was pretty cheap to get. Again, you didn't need to add a lot of pieces. I actually got fortunate in PTCG. I think I pulled a dowsing machine, which was really great in the deck. So that was an expensive card to have to get, but I got that for free there. Um, and it was a very solid top 10 deck and expanded for a while too. And that was my go-to deck for a while when the new sets would drop, right? That's part of what we're going to miss with PTCG rotating. New sets would drop. You'd have that period of time when the new packs were the only prizes and events. So the Mad Party Expanded was kind of my go-to deck to grind those events for that week or two period. So I played a
and
lot
then
of
you have like
games
a
with it.
mad scramble to like get the stuff as soon as possible, and then
Yes.
you trade it away, and then like the servers like crash, all that.
Well, yeah, yeah. I mean, obviously, especially then trying to load up the trades during that first weekend when everybody wanted stuff. Sometimes you could never load the trades. It was just getting overwhelmed. So, anyway, certainly that I'm not going to miss part aspects of that going away with live. But I have a soft spot for Mad Party. I enjoyed it. I mean, did you like the deck by the way, or not particularly?
Yeah, I like. I mean, it's cool. I like discarding. I like kind of turbo style decks.
Mm-hmm.
I think I like the deck a lot less after Dedenne rotated.
Mm-hmm.
I really enjoy like a go fast style deck. So obviously it's much slower without it's slower without Dedenne.
Yeah.
Um, so I don't know. It was a cool deck. It was also like one of my first decks. So it's cool, but it's not my favorite deck. Actually, my favorite deck from that set, from Darkness Ablaze,
Mm-hmm.
because Mad Party I believe was in that set, has to be Decidueye. Decidueye was like it was. I mean, it's so good. It like carried me to. I played in the Players Online Global Championship that year. And I came 10th because I had like auto win after auto win after auto win. I think I played across. I think I played somewhere around. I played maybe nine. No, it wasn't 19. Let's see. How many games did I play?
Over those two, yeah, I think you
Yeah, I
played
think it
what
might have been.
9 games the first day,
It
because I
might have
think there
been
were 10 rounds.
8 the second.
Yeah.
So maybe like 17 games. I think I hit like 14, 15 auto wins, something like that. So yeah, that was pretty good. I lost some of my auto wins, but it was pretty good.
Right. I mean, yeah, auto wins you don't always win. Still, that's a lesson learned. And I'll take some credit for that. Obviously, you piloted the deck well, but I remember that with Pog coming, and I played Luke Metal. Just kind of, I liked the deck, and that was kind of my last hurrah with that. But you were looking for a deck even like the Thursday, maybe the Friday before, and you were like trying to put together a Zoroark deck last minute, and I was like, don't do that, right? You don't know. It's just too much to put together last minute. So you just kind of net deck that and just went with it without knowing much about it, really.
Yeah, yeah. I stand by the fact that Zoroark's very good. But it's not. it was. I'm not a good enough deck builder to like. I'm not like a competitive deck builder. I can get
Yeah.
ideas together, but I can't refine the. I can kind of refine lists, but I can't refine a list like really quickly or anything. So and it's not something I have a ton of practice with either. So I
Right.
wasn't able. So if I wasn't able to get the Zorak list, I think one person played Zorak. I believe Sander played Zorak, and didn't do too well in that tournament. So
Yeah.
yeah,
I mean, you do
this is
better
why I
now.
could.
Yeah, you do better now building a deck quickly, but you didn't have a lot of time back at that point. I think that set dropped not long before the tournament. So,
Yeah, I don't know if I'd be better. I'm doing at my peak then.
but Decidueye is a good call, good pick, and you played it solid. Even though they're quote auto wins, you still have to make the right setup decisions. You can still throw a game by making stupid decisions, right? So you managed to avoid that. So because
Yeah,
not
I think I played very well during that tournament as well, and very like accurately.
right, because the Decidueye players did well in general, but you came in 10th, and most Decidueye players didn't fare anywhere near as well as that. So part of it may be the matchups you got, but you made good decisions. So um, and so yeah, so that one's got a soft spot for you for sure. Um, a deck that I used in an event with some level of success, not that level of success for sure, but as Eternatus. I used that in Players Cup 4. Actually, when Players Cup 4 started, I actually didn't have an Eternatus deck. I didn't have all the pieces. I was playing, I think Tempos are a welder box. But it was just going really inconsistent for me, as welder boxes do. So I kind of paused for like a week, got together the pieces for Eternus, and went in with that. And things picked up. Not enough for me to qualify to move on, but it was by far the best deck I had played up to that point for quality deck, and a pretty straightforward deck too, I will say. But that process too of you get, I think it was 50 keys, so I probably played 35 to 40 with Eternatus. I got, at a pretty high level for Eternatus, knew all the ins and outs of the deck. So definitely a deck I remember fondly in Eternatus.
Yeah, and how did you like play that deck? Because there are a bunch of, I mean, there are some different ways of playing it, right?
Right. I mean, one thing now that I think about it, that was when, we complained about live, but PTCGO's had its issues. I think I grabbed a list, and I think it played the Hoopa, right, that swings in and does 90 for one energy. And like the day I got that card and got that list set to go, then they banned it in PTCGO because it wasn't working right. I think you could always attack even if it didn't become active. So I'm like going, oh, what are you doing to me here? Um, but what I ultimately ended up doing was I played hammers, which is a card I really hate. Crushing hammer, I hate when it gets used against me, but I hate using it too. But ultimately, because of Eternatus, you can only attach. There wasn't Dark Patch back then, so you're really or Moltres V, so you're only attaching one energy per turn basically. So it would set up slowly. So some hammers to slow down your opponent early really helped the deck. So hammers, and then the Hoopa. Oh, there was another secondary attacker
Oh,
also.
Evoltal, I believe.
Yes, yeah, Yveltal.
Which wasn't that good.
No, no, but I think at least I know I had it at one point. I don't remember if it stuck in, and obviously the Crobats. And I don't remember
You
the.
played goons, I'm assuming too, right? That
Oh
was
yeah,
like you
yes,
played four goons in every list, probably.
probably four. Yeah, I would think four goons. So they must have probably had some nets and whatever trainers, assortment of trainers. Was Hiding Dark out at that point or no?
Oh yeah, adding dark was in the same set as Eternus, so
Okay,
you
so
probably played that. You might have played Piers too. Who knows?
I like Piers. That's one of our great debates, right? I've played a lot of Eternatus. I always feel like, hey, Piers searches for a dark Pokemon, very good. But it searches for any energy, right? And I do like having the Hiding Dark. But in Eternatus, you can get your Eternatus out of the active if it's getting damaged before it gets knocked out, because it wasn't getting one shot back then. So you could get it out of the active, send up another one. So Hiding Dark was good. So Piers, I think, was really good in the deck. But a lot of people didn't play it, so maybe I overestimated. I'll admit that's a possibility.
Yeah, as I said, I think Piers is good in some decks, but not Eternus. I like it in like Urshifu. There's like an Ice Rider deck that played it. I think Piers makes sense in that deck. But you know, we have differing opinions on the card at least.
Yeah. I mean, at times you'd play it like people would play an Urshifu without playing a dark Pokemon, right? Just because it was the only way to search for a special energy, which seemed a bit odd. People would do that, and yet somehow I was wrong to play it in a dark deck when I could actually search for the Pokemon too. But whatever.
That's a debate for another day. But
Yeah.
I guess another because we're just talking about Darkness Ablaze because Darkness Ablaze was like really good. So
Yeah.
another deck I liked from that set. I guess I didn't play it right when it came out. It was debatably the best deck in format. It won the Pseudo Worlds, the POG Championship that year. Was Vikavolt
Mm.
with Pikachu and Zekrom, but I played it like Vikavolt V, which item locks, also pairing it with Inteleons and some Studio Control aspect cards. I think that's really fun and just item locking your opponent and like damaging them and annoying them and winning. I'm not like I like annoying decks some as well, and I
Hmm.
think that Vikavolt an annoying deck and one it's straightforward to play but still fun.
Right, and with some of these, as we talked about, Vikavolt still obviously very strong today. Eternus has made a comeback. Mad Party's obviously fallen off to Oblivion. And Decidueye is not particularly strong now, right? You have Miltank, which is just generally just better because it's a basic. So
Yeah,
some things last, some things don't.
yeah. The multi-prizers apparently last.
Yes, there is that, and then we could go on a rant about power creep, I guess, for the rest of the podcast, but I think we'll avoid that. Um, so talking about a multi-prizer here, one which I've enjoyed playing, which you have never liked, is Delmai's VMAX. Um, One of the grass Pokemon that's it's okay, right? It's not great, but it was a fun one with what the Rillaboom that
Accelerates energy
accelerates
from the
two,
deck, right?
right, to get it set up. They're trying to call up the Delmice here to read it off. So the Delmice VMAX, it's
You're struggling on live there.
I'm struggling. My spelling is letting me down. Okay, the D followed by the H. I was missing that. So, and I do like the card. I see this giant anchor here, which is just kind of an absurd Pokemon, but it makes it kind of fun here. The retreat cost is 3. That's not good. Um, but max anchor does 240 damage for 3 energy. You had the Rillaboom to get the energy set up. They couldn't use max anchor attack the next turn. Sometimes I think I use memory capsule to attack with the V for 200 damage, which isn't bad. But then as the game went on, swinging chain, it did 30 damage to one of your opponent's Pokemon. So you could hit to the bench if you wanted to. 30 damage per grass energy attached to this Pokemon. So that was just often a really good way to do some big damage late in the game, or you clean up Pokemon on the bench that they retreated off that you hadn't knocked out. So it was a solid deck, and one I enjoyed playing for sure.
Yeah, that's. I think it's a bit more of a. That deck wasn't that strong. I don't think. I
It
mean, it
was
wasn't.
not as good as Eternatus, and it wasn't as good as Mad Party either.
Yeah,
Nor
but
as good as
I,
Vikavolt or Decidueye.
yeah, yeah. But I think spread's interesting. And I'll talk about one of my favorite spread decks, which is also annoying. It's Dragapult. I think Dragapult VMAX is like
Hmm.
super fun. Okay, it's pretty fun to play. There are times it's kind of fallen off because its damage output's relatively low, but it was really the first VMAX that like was good. Um, and it's fun. You play it with the I played it with the Inteleon engine, and it's interesting being able to like spread damage counters around. It's a very like simple attacker.
Hmm.
It's like a turn, except you don't need 8 bench Pokemon, so it's pretty nice. And it obviously fares very badly against Eternus, but
Yeah.
overall, it's a pretty fun attacker to use.
I mean, you used it and enjoyed it. I didn't get it as quick as early on as you did, and honestly, when I played it, I find it just doesn't work for me because you have to get a Dragapult V down turn one, and for some reason I couldn't usually do that, or if I did, I couldn't attach an energy. So you have to have 2 energies. You have to get
That's true
an
of like
energy.
every deck in the
I
game,
know, but
though.
except it never worked for Dragapult for me, which doesn't make sense because you have the
Fog Crystal, you have more
exactly.
outs than
I
any
know
other
you
deck.
do, but honestly, like only seemed like 25% of the time it would set up on turn one for me. So then I felt like I had lost the game before at the end of my first turn. And of course, it was good for that one set, but then you know, people you invest your resources to get it, and then they make a turn that just wipes it out. So Pokemon kind of, they did that game there.
I mean, it was like very. I didn't play it right when it came out. I played it later, like a few sets later,
Mhm.
um, and then it was a valid. It was a solid counter to Urshifu,
Yes.
and also just it like became more viable as the meta kind of revolved around.
Hmm.
And even now, it's not that good now, but there's a time when it was very solid, especially at countering Inteleon engines because you can kind of play Sables. That's the time where people are debating which like Sabo was better.
Right. I mean, because Dragon Ball, it does 130. It places 5 damage counters, which is nice, but 130 is for the main part of the damage, and that's obviously real slow. So it was a kind of a counter attacker in there. So I know you certainly like that. I'm gonna talk about a deck that we both played in the thus far only IRL event we went to, a standard IRL event we went to. In that we both used the Inteleon VMAX deck, right? Because there was the League Battle deck that was out at the time, so it was very obtainable, and it was an okay card, not the Rapid Strike Inteleon that was probably stronger, but for Rebel Clash, so 320 HP, the max bullet, the main attack takes 3 energy. To do 160. Threes obviously was tough to get on it, and then it did 160 to the actives and 60 to a bench Pokemon. So the damage output was okay. Not great, but certainly okay. But then 3 energy, it was just tough to set up. But that, with the Inteleon engine, it made it like an okay option, I guess, is what I'd say. And because we took it to the event, I certainly put in a lot of time on PTCG with the deck, both preparing for the event and then afterwards trying to refine the deck list. I imagine you put in time also online with the deck too.
Yeah, I did. I played it in like an online tournament as well, and it did really well. And then this was an like as I said, our only IRL event.
Mm-hmm.
We don't spend big money on it, so this was a very affordable deck. But
Yeah.
pretty much we were outclassed. Um, so we like
Yeah.
the other. So I believe this was post. I don't remember, but it was some
It
pretty
was
much.
like an
I think the best decks were Urshifu and Calyrex, and neither of us had that.
right.
And Urshifu is obviously pretty much a directly better deck than Inteleon. Certainly there are some differences, but
Hmm.
so yeah, that was like very common. Shadow Rider was very common, and it's not like he couldn't beat those decks, but it was difficult.
Right. You had to get a lucky, and yeah, it was like when that set had just dropped, and obviously there's the Ice Rider, which wasn't as popular at first, but Ice Rider, when you compare it to Inteleon, Ice Rider is just similar but just better too.
Yeah, well, I actually no, I believe it was when Evolving Skies dropped. So no one
Oh,
played any Evolving Skies decks. So, um,
okay.
yeah, it was kind of weird. I guess no one like had them. I think it was like literally like I don't know if it was the day it dropped. It was very soon, and like no one had it, so it was kind of pointless. But
I think
yeah,
it
it
was the
was.
weekend after it was available in stores, the packs, like the Thursday or Friday before, because we played the pre-release the weekend before at our local store, which is the Type 1 IRL event we've done, and then we went out to that standard event.
Yeah, okay,
So I
okay.
think the
So
cards had been out for like 2 days or something, so there
yeah,
wasn't much
so
of it.
no one like had them.
No.
Which was but I obviously also played that. It was a cool deck. It was cooler pre-rotation, honestly. It just
Yeah.
worked better, I think, and it was more fun.
Hmm.
But and then I guess there are a few other decks I played that I enjoyed that I'm gonna miss. One of them is has to be Control. Control isn't completely gutted with rotation. It's retaining some aspects, but you're losing a few important cards. Notably, I'm really sad that we're losing Snorlax with
Hmm.
Gormadize and also
Yeah.
Glare and Meowth to be able to discard cards from your hand. So
Right.
now you're like drawn to for controls drastically reduced.
Hmm.
You're forced to do stuff like Rotom, and like no one wants to use Rotom. So yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Snorlax with Gorwin Eyes is just a tremendous card to help set up, even for non-control decks. Sometimes play it just right, kind of get something on the bench, some energy on it, throw out the Snorlax, and start and just get set for the next turn. And obviously great for control. So yeah, there's some good pieces for control going. Now, most of the rest of us that don't play control are not sad that these cards are going, but I
do
understand
not
you.
worry though. Crushing Hammer is not rotating.
I know. I was concerned that they weren't going to reprint it, right? Because it was a D block, right? But they decided to reprint it so we wouldn't
Yeah.
lose it. So, Yeah, that's really unfortunate. But the one card that they reprinted that I am excited about, which you don't care about, is Pokegear. I really I enjoy that card too much, I know, but it's one of those things. I look at that as it can be its own engine to me. So, but not a good engine, but you see some cards.
Yeah. And I think there's one more deck we have to talk about,
Yeah, I
right?
have. One that I'll mention briefly is the Zacian Zamazenta, which is kind of post rotation. It was obviously it was in ADP potentially, and I played Luke Metal, which was Luke Metal with Zacian Zamazenta. So it kind of was the poor man's Luke Metal post rotation because obviously Luke Metal itself was gone, but Zacian obviously was a good attacker. Zamazenta to be tanky. Obviously, Metal Saucer to set things up. So it was, it was an okay option, is what I'll say. Not the best, but Zacian was a tremendous card when it first came out, and his state is a very solid card the whole time.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess so.
What? It's still good, right? I mean, hey, Dialga's still okay, and obviously it needs Zacian to make
I
it.
don't know if it needs Zacian.
Well, we'll
Dialga's
find
not
out.
that good either.
No,
I
it's
think
not.
Dialga needs Metal Saucer. I don't think Dialga needs
Well,
Zacian.
yeah, I guess you just want the Zacian maybe for like your first turn, and after that, you'd like to just scoop it up and get it out of the way.
Yeah, it has a little bit of value in that deck, but it's not that good. But then the last deck
Yeah.
that you and I have both played, and we both play some, I guess, the
Hmm.
Pokemon, but Galarian Weezing from, well, originally, what was it, Rebel Clash, I think. But it came out in Shining, it was reprinted in Shining Face, very importantly, with the coughing, with its
Right.
Ascension attack, allowing you to get into it turn one, going second, which was super strong, meaning that before
Yes.
your opponent had a chance to evolve, you could always get a Weezing up. And it's just very like good.
Hmm.
And then we paired it with Sableye. That was the build. And it was very fun. Being able to like Weezing, lock them up, do some combos using Teleon to pink damage. You could even pair it with Metacham V. I always loved that.
Hmm.
Where you can Metacham V to KO them, and then go back into the Weezing before they had a chance to do anything else.
Right. Yeah, with the Italian engine, it let you access the pieces you want because you kept your abilities, your opponent's not doing much. Now, the problem with the Sableye, which that was the way it was played there early on for sure, Sableye would get its one attack, but its HP was pretty low, so then it would usually get knocked out immediately after. So you often wanted to just use it to win the game or knock out a three prizer because you're giving up two prizes the next turn. Um,
Yeah, but you'd be able to do that, certainly.
Yes, you would. Now, I'll say two things, one of which you won't like. And when I played it, I would then certainly be tempted to put a Piers in because I would want to get that Hiding Dark onto the Wheezing so I could retreat it back for the Sableye. You don't like that, I know. But then the other thing is with the Wheezing decks in general, there's a bit of you throw the Wheezing out and you kind of hope that your opponent can't get around it, which probably half the time they can't. But, if your opponent can get around the Wheezing set up its attacker and knock out, you would find yourself in trouble too.
Yeah, I think so. There are like various ways of playing it. And also, I remember the big debate was, is Weezing Sableye better or is Hoopa Moltres better?
Hmm.
People like argued about that, even though they're pretty much the same deck. So that was kind of funny. And eventually they
Yeah,
like became the same deck. But they pretty much played the same anyway. That was kind of
right.
funny. But you could still have options of Galarian Moltres late game. Galarian Moltres provide the same value as Sableye, and then Hoopa provide the same value as Weezing. They're slightly different, obviously, but um,
Yeah,
yeah,
but Weezing's been a good card. It's always fun to shut down your opponents and putting four poison counters on between at the end between every turn. Certainly, it adds up quickly, and obviously Weezing's still around. Obviously, it's kind of keeping Eternus going today, so a strong card for sure.
yeah, and obviously, although like Weezing's rotating, Vikvolt's rotating, do not worry. There's a new ability lock card getting printed in the next set. There's a new item lock card being printed in the next set, so those won't be going away anytime soon. As in like not for another 3 years. So yeah, that's fun.
Yeah, no control ability lock. It's never gonna fully go away, right? Pokemon I think they kind of hate control decks because it makes it unpleasant, but yet they keep making the cards that make it viable too. So that's just what it is.
Yeah, but what do you think your like what deck are you gonna miss the most? What's your like favorite deck that's rotating?
The deck that I enjoyed the most back when it was solid was Mad Party. It was just a fun deck, those single prize kind of semi meme type decks. I just like that, and a lot of people do. So now it's been a
Yeah.
long time since I could really play Mad Party because talking about preparing for this video, I put together a Mad Party deck, tried it a few times, and it just has gone nowhere. Right? It's just not good enough for anything. But it's just a fun deck when it's working. How about for you?
Yeah, I've got to go with my boy Decidueye,
Yep.
a deck that's carried me. It's like an easy deck. It's a fun deck, and then you like make these like. It still requires skill though. You
Hmm.
need to target down the right things. You often like know the matchup much better than your opponent too, so you're
Yep.
like planning around things that they're never ever gonna do. So it's kind of fun in that regards. But yeah, it's certainly it's probably the best stage two deck we've seen in a while. Like that's actually a stage two. Like
Yeah.
Inteleon doesn't exactly count. Like Archeops doesn't count. But yeah,
Right.
I really loved it.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's probably this whole block. I can't think of another stage two that's been viable. Hopefully,
Yeah.
maybe with
Obstagoon
the
was viable, but not for that
yeah,
long.
yeah, it was briefly, right? But
For like one set, like
yeah,
two or three maybe.
yeah. So hopefully with the EXs that opens up again, but we'll see. But yeah, so Weezing a very good choice there. So you want to bring us home with the podcast here?
Yeah, sure. So obviously we hope you enjoyed. And if you're watching this on YouTube, it'd be really interesting. Obviously, want to hear your feedback in the comments. Also, if you enjoyed it, leave a like and subscribe. Check out Ten Types and Uncommon Fossil. There should be links to both the channels. And if you're listening to this on a different platform, feedback's appreciated. I don't know if we'll actually be able to see the feedback. Hopefully, we can though. But yeah, we hope you enjoyed, and we're excited to see you next time.
Take care.